It was a chilly Friday night, and I had decided to host a sleepover at my house with 3 of my closest friends, Sarah, Alex, and Mark. We were all excited about our night of scary movies and junk food, hoping to make some unforgettable memories. As the night progressed, we decided to take a break from watching horror films and opted for a change of pace. That's when Sarah suggested we play a game she had heard about, the 4 Minutes game. None of us had heard of it before, but she explained that it was a challenge to spend 4 minutes in complete darkness with no noise or movement while holding our breath. Naturally, we were skeptical but curious. Sarah set a timer on her phone for 4 minutes, and we all gathered in the living room, shutting off all the lights. The eerie darkness seemed to envelop us as we stood there in silence, our breaths getting slower and deeper. The first minute passed without incident. We exchanged quiet glances, almost laughing at how easy this game seemed. But as the seconds ticked away, an unsettling feeling began to creep over us. Around the 2-minute mark, I started to feel like something was wrong. I couldn't put my finger on it, but the room felt different, colder, and more oppressive. My heart started pounding, and I glanced at my friends, their faces etched with unease. Then, just as the timer approached the 3-minute mark, a faint whisper cut through the silence. It was so low that I thought I had imagined it, but the terrified expressions on my friends' faces confirmed they had heard it too. "What was that?" Mark whispered, his voice quivering. We strained our ears, listening intently, and the whisper came again, closer this time. It was an indistinct murmur, like someone muttering words we couldn't quite make out. Panic surged through us, and we instinctively grabbed each other's hands. With only a minute left on the timer, the whispers grew louder and more sinister. It was as if unseen voices surrounded us, their words filled with malevolence. Dread hung heavy in the air, and my heart felt like it was about to burst out of my chest. As the timer finally hit the 4-minute mark, we bolted for the light switch. When the room flooded with illumination, we saw no one else there, and the whispers abruptly ceased. We never played the 4 Minutes game again. The experience left us shaken, and we couldn't shake the feeling that something otherworldly had intruded upon our sleepover. We tried to rationalize it as our imagination, but the fear we felt in those 4 minutes was all too real. It was a night none of us would ever forget, reminding us that sometimes curiosity can lead to encounters beyond our comprehension. My friends and I were always up for a thrill, so when we heard about the supposedly cursed antique mirror in an old abandoned mansion, we couldn't resist. We decided to spend the night there, documenting any paranormal activity for our YouTube channel. The mansion was dilapidated, covered in cobwebs, and filled with a thick layer of dust. The mirror was the centerpiece of a once grand ballroom, and it had an eerie presence that was impossible to ignore. As night fell, we set up our cameras, ready to capture any ghostly encounters. At first, nothing happened. We joked and laughed, trying to mask our unease. But as the clock struck midnight, the atmosphere changed. The mirror's reflection began to distort, showing twisted and nightmarish versions of ourselves. Terrified, we tried to back away, but an invisible force held us in place. The distorted reflections in the mirror started to reach out, their cold fingers brushing against our skin. Panic consumed us as we realized we were trapped in a cursed mirror's grasp. In the mirror's reflection, our surroundings changed. The mansion was no longer abandoned, but filled with ghostly figures in old-fashioned attire, dancing to an eerie tune. They beckoned us to join them, their eyes hollow and mournful. With every passing moment, we grew weaker, our life force draining away as we danced in the cursed mirror's world. Our cries for help went unanswered as no one could hear us from the other side. Hours felt like days as we danced in that haunted reflection, our bodies growing frail and skeletal. It seemed like there was no escape until, suddenly, the mirror shattered, releasing us from its curse. We fell to the floor, gasping for breath. We fled the mansion, leaving our equipment behind, and never spoke of that night again. The curse of the mirror had left scars on our souls, a constant reminder that not all adventures are meant to be pursued. It was a cold, moonless night when my friends and I decided to spend the weekend at a secluded cabin in the woods. We had heard rumors about the cabin being haunted, but we brushed them off as local folklore. Little did we know that this trip would change our lives forever. As we settled into the cozy cabin, we laughed and cracked jokes, completely ignoring the eerie feeling that seemed to linger in the air. The night was calm until we heard it, the faint sound of footsteps creaking on the wooden floor. We all froze, exchanging nervous glances. "Did you hear that?" whispered Sarah, her voice trembling. "Yeah, probably just the wind," I replied, trying to convince myself more than anyone else. But then, the footsteps grew louder and closer, echoing through the cabin. Panic set in as we realized there was no logical explanation for the sounds. We were alone in the middle of nowhere. Suddenly, the lights flickered and then went out, plunging us into darkness. Our hearts pounded, and the once familiar cabin now felt like a trap. Sarah screamed, and I fumbled for my phone, using its weak flashlight to guide us. That's when we saw it, a shadowy figure at the end of the hallway. It stood there, motionless, its eyes gleaming with an otherworldly light. Terror coursed through our veins as we stumbled backward, crashing into furniture, trying to escape. We ran for the front door, but it slammed shut on its own, trapping us inside. The figure drew closer, and its chilling laughter filled the air. It was a laughter that sent shivers down our spines, a laughter that didn't belong in this world. In a desperate bid to escape, we rushed to the back door, praying it would lead us to safety. As we burst outside, the cold, biting air hit us like a wall. But the cabin's horrors weren't over. The trees around us seemed to come alive, their branches reaching out like skeletal hands, grasping at us. We ran deeper into the woods, not knowing where we were heading, just desperate to escape the malevolent presence that had taken over the cabin. The laughter followed us, haunting us every step of the way. Hours later, we stumbled upon a ranger station and were rescued. But we were never the same after that night. The cabin's evil had left its mark on us, a constant reminder that some things are better left undisturbed.